Hi everyone, this is Kelly from The Truth in Story, and today I am doing 2 days of Leonard March because last night I went to do it quite late as usual, but we had so many storms all last night and my electricity kept losing power that I said no, I have to unplug your computers because there was having a lot of lightning and I didn't want my computer being zotted, and then I thought it was over, so then I would plug it back in to try to do things, and then the power would go out again. And I said, you know what, this is not worth the life of my computer, so I just unplugged everything and just kind of relaxed and read and things, watched TV, so that on my laptop that I just kind of watch videos off of. I don't really, oops, let me turn this off. I don't really, I can have it unplugged. I don't have that much on there, so I couldn't edit videos on it. It's too slow for that. But anyway, so tonight we're going to do 2 of them. And so I thought, I haven't used this Bluebird one yet, so for the 6th card, I thought we would go ahead and use this. Now, this As Above, So Below, I think that's what she actually calls it in her book, is in Caitlin Matthews' Complete Lenormand. And I quite like this. I never used a 6 card, except for when it would, if you're doing a grand tableau and I only had 6 cards to work with, obviously then I would. But I never laid a 6 card down until I came across this particular spread. And I actually quite like it as a spread. But let me make sure. Yes, I was right. It was definitely, I thought for sure it was, but I wanted to make sure that it was that book. So it is from Caitlin Matthews, The Complete Lenormand. And I do have information on this on the handout, which you can find in the first series of this Lenormand or Leonard March videos, which are all in a playlist. So you can go up to playlists and go to Leonard March and you'll see all of the videos. And the very first one has some handouts in it. So what you do is you're going to shuffle your cards considering your question. And I'm going to just do kind of, what is it that I have personally gotten out of Leonard March as we're starting to wrap things up here. A few days left to go. What have I gained from the month of March spent with Lenormand? And what you do is you shuffle, thinking about your question. And then you cut your deck. Now, some people say, you always cut with the right hand or you always cut with the left hand. You're the right hand, the left hand being your heart hand. I am not overly picky about that, but you go ahead and split however you want so that you end up in 3 cards. And you take the top 3 cards and then from the bottom, you take your bottom 3 cards, like so. Okay? So you're going to read your triplets up along the top. So we have the Anchors and Mice and the birch rod, right? So we have stability that comes from eating away at repetition. This is just, a lot of times I really just go with it. I don't overthink, how I'm going to read it. It's what pops out to me. I think that there is maybe a restabilization by the eating away of that sort of repetitive thing. So for me, I think maybe it was just a break in the routine. I use Lenormand all the time, but needing to go through the month and working with it has forced me to kind of look at things differently, learn new things. Like I never used to do where you'd split the deck and you turn it over and get, before you go to laying things out, you can get like an overview with the bottom 2 cards. That was something that I learned that was new for me to be able to do. Paying attention to adding up all the numbers and condensing them into a number to get an overall feeling of that is something that I hadn't really been doing before. I knew about it, and every once in a while I was doing it, but I really wasn't paying close attention to it, and that kind of brought it to my, so I feel like that sometimes you can get too stable, right, where it's almost stagnant, and sometimes you need to do something to eat away at the repetition so that you break up the repetition, so to speak. So I think that's the first things that came to my mind there. And then we can read the three below where we had a difficulty. So it was a difficult month for me, but having this whole month has given me strength and forced me to communicate. So that's what I see, just, again, really just kind of going with my gut feelings on things. We don't have to overly think these things. Yes, there are ways to really set things together and do things really traditionally and make sure that you're reading things properly. But I think that some degree of just rolling with what kind of comes out in a sentence form like that is a really helpful way of just getting the things going. And then you might, get a little bit, technical and into things, but to me that feels right. So this was a really difficult month for me, and working with Lenormand did give me strength and give me something else to focus on, and forced me to continue to communicate and to not step back, because normally in the month of March or other months that are very difficult for me in the grieving process, I'm generally one to step back and stop communicating. And so having this to do every day forced me to continue to keep communicating, and that was very helpful for me. And so I do think that works in that factor. Then what you can do is you can read your pairs like this. So you have a sort of a stability or a strengthening, a stabilizing force through difficulties, is because the question is how did Lenormand help me? We do have an eating away, though, of strength that could occur as well, which isn't so much of a positive thing, right? So there was some degree, there was some degree of extra stress, I would say, because I couldn't just hole up in a ball, because there is something to be said for not having any, in a bad time, not to have any responsibilities, and there were times that needing to continually every day try to focus on this as well as a within without advice challenge was somewhat stressful, because I just didn't want to deal with it at times. But overall, I had a continual repetitious communication, and again, that's a pretty big shift for me, because generally I'm pulling way back from communication during a month like the month of Michael's birthday. So all in all, I still see that it did actually sometimes have a little bit of stressful aspect to it, but overall I think it was very good for me and very healthy for me. And then what you do is you read your crosses here. So we have a stability and strength found through repetition, through that, because it was a repetitive. This was very apt to show up. It's a daily thing for both of the challenges, every day. And so there was a stability and a strength that came from that. And there were a lot of people. I do think of the bear as a strong people, strong women, strong men around me. And so that was a stabilizing force and a repetitive stabilizing force, because working within without advice, was consistently working with people it was just fantastic to see everybody's posts and see their strength and things that they were learning. And again, it was just that continual stabilizing force of that repetition. So that's, I think, true as well. So then we have obstacles that were eaten away by the communication. So I do, sometimes you get a little bit of repetition when you cut, but that lets you know that the message is there and the message is strong. And so I like those kinds of confirmations. And again, this is something you do pretty quickly. Yes, there are 6 cards, but it's not like 6 cards with tarot where you're really that's a little moving towards a larger spread. It's still very quick. You're reading these as quick sentences. It doesn't take very long. And then you've got the overall message that says, it was a good thing for me. There were stressful parts of it, but overall it was very stabilizing for me, and it was keeping me communicating versus stepping back and not communicating. So that is an example of how you would do. Now, they do talk about, you could also check out the corners. I don't tend to do this all that much because usually by the time I've done this, I feel like it's all been, there was a stabilizing in communication through repetition, and there were repetitive difficulties. Like, it was still a difficult month, but the stabilizing force was being forced to continue to communicate. So I don't often do the crisscross with this particular one because this feels like the crisscross, if that makes sense to you, but you can. That's, you know, if you need more clarification, that's another way that you can clarify things. And so that's how I would do a 6 card. I quite like these. You know, you can get into even more with the as above being sort of the mental, the so below being kind of the information, the stabilizing, or the stuff in the unconscious. There's a lot that you can do with the 6 card, and it is one of, I really do like to do this spread, and I use it quite a bit. So there we have it. This is a 6 card, as above, so below, from Caitlin Matthews' Complete Lenormand Handbook. And I'm sure there's other people that do 6 cards like that. That's just where I happen to see it. And so that's why I would give credit to there, because I wasn't doing it until I particularly found it in that book. So, and I do apologize if I've possibly seen it. I don't think so, though, if I'd seen it. And because you do so much research online, sometimes it's hard to know exactly where you got things, because especially when you're looking at traditional spreads, you know, they're all over the place. So figuring out exactly where the first time you saw it can sometimes be difficult. But this one I feel pretty sure about. So the next card, or the next readings, is a 9 card. And I've done a couple 9 cards for you as we've been going throughout the month. I'm just going to show you a couple ways that you can lay down a 9 card, because, you know, that's something that you have to figure out what resonates with you. My most preferred way to lay a 9 card down, because I really like to tap into the proximity factor of Lenormand, is to do the turnover and find the significator card. So if the significator card for the same question, let's see, so it would be my, you know, working with, I'm going to go ahead and do the book. That's kind of learning, training, gathering knowledge. So I'm going to look for the book. And once I find the book, there's the book, I take the 4 cards after, 4, and the 1, 2, 3, 4 cards before. And again, you're looking for proximity. So you find your book and you put that down first, and then the cards that go after it, you know, go after it. And the cards that go before it, make the 3 cards before it. So we have a difficult month that was harmonized. There was also a gentleman or a person, a significant other person, or a leadership kind of person it can be, that was also a key to the success of dealing with these particular obstacles. We do have the sometimes. I don't find these to always be, I'll be honest, and I always forget until I actually do it. And this is something you'll have to come to on your own. Sometimes when I am doing a specific, where I'm not using the significator cards, and the questions really don't relate directly to the significator cards, I'll remove those, because I don't always find they have a lot to add to the discussion. Again, you can use sort of a leadership, masculine energy, and you can even see with this one, again, it gives you that feeling. And you can use an intuition sort of for the feminine energy. But this could also be an anchoring for me that could show up there. We have a positive change that came about through the commitment to this process. So I'm not going to go into a full reading here because I want to show you a couple ways in which to lay it down. So that's the one way I do, is I look for the significator, take 4 before and 4 after, and lay it down like I just showed you. And in that case, I look to the top corner to see the main theme that's coming up. Now, another way that you can do this is to still pull a significator. So I might say, okay, what's going to be the significator? Okay, the significator is going to be the book. So I'll go ahead and put the book down as my significator. And then, you know, shuffle my cards to my question. And then lay my cards, you know, organically. Now, some people lay like this. This hat comes a lot with Kipper too, where you're always kind of doing this and then filling in the corners. And if you were to continue out, you would continue to kind of go in that pattern of doing the cross around and then filling in the corners. The only thing I don't like about that personally is it again removes what cards were like actually butting up to each other. But that is a very traditional way to do it, and some people do it that way. Another way that you can do it, which I would normally do, although as I said, mostly when I'm doing a 9 card, I'm doing it the first way where I'm finding and I'm pulling before and after. That's my most common way of doing a 9 card. For me personally, I just found that that resonates the most with me, and so that's usually what I'm doing. But that if I'm filling it in like that, I would probably do it this. So it was a successful month. I would look here again because I picked the significator both times. So I would look to the corner for the base understanding so that this month was a success. It was a success. We have the man in the same corner, and as well as the garden, which is also very appropriate as well, because it's this kind of social thing. And I felt it was something new that even kept me in a way from retreating into the tower like I normally do. So that would be a way that you can lay a 9 card also. And then the other way that you can lay, I mean, there's probably many ways, but the other way that you can do is to simply be thinking about your question. Now there's a couple ways that I do this when I do it like this, which isn't very often, but sometimes I do just kind of, it feels like the right thing to do, and I will. So much like the 6 card, you can pull it and make your 3 piles like this. But then what I do for this particular one is I literally will just take 3 cards from here, 3 cards from the top of here for the second row, and then for the third row, take 3 cards from the top of that pile, and that would be my 6 card. Now, when you do a 6 card on a question that you haven't picked or 9 card, I'm sorry, where you haven't picked the significator, then I look to both of these cards. So we have my sense of well-being, and this was tied to a choice. And so you would go through and read your cards that way. And then finally, same sort of idea that you're just going to lay them down and not pick a significator. Is you would just shuffle. I often still split, and I would actually look to the cards. As I've been learned this month, we have something new, in a new social situation, a new social obligation, and that was very helpful to me in this month, which was very true. And then I would go ahead and lay my 3 cards, or my 3 cards, my 9 cards. For me, because I'm kind of doing this a little more oracally, it's not a very pragmatic question. It's just about how this was helpful for me. I would say this aided in my transformation, brought me a little bit of luck, worked with me on the inner level of things, gained some knowledge that got me through difficult times. And you just kind of go through. I'm not going to read it. I feel like my first one was my reading for it. I just want to show you some different ways in which you can draw out a 9 card and start to read them. And so you would read this like you would read any other thing. You would look to both of these cards. If you haven't chosen your significator, you'd look at these 2 cards. Then you would look to your corners. Then you would look. Well, I mean, you can do it in any order, but the things that I always would touch on would be looking to the corner. In combination, again, I don't normally do it this way. Usually I've picked this card, so I always look to the corner. Then I would look to the actual corners, and then I would you know, look at the cross, and then you start to read them this way, and you start to read them that way, and you know, kind of do your whole, kind of going through the whole thing as I've been showing you. So those are just a couple ways in which you can lay the cards out to help you with a 9 card. And there is again a handout in that first one for the 9 card as well as the 6 card, because these are kind of the reason why the 6 card and the 9 card is so important is that when you're laying out a grand tableau, I'm going to do this really fast. Okay, move this out of the way. 1, 2, 3. Do I have 6? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay. This is going to be messy. Actually, it really slows me down in readings because I really don't like to do messy. And I also don't deal from the bottom of the deck like this. But really all I'm trying to do is get a grand tableau down on the table. So don't do as I say, not as I do. Isn't that what parents say? Okay, the reason why it's good to have a 6 card and a 9 card down is because generally with the grand tableau, right, you're doing the same thing, except for instead of just the first card, you're taking the first 3 cards, right? And then you're looking at your corners, so still only 4 cards, just like you were doing a 9 card. You can also look to your middle card. Well, you can, if you're doing the 8 by 4 down here, you can look down here. You can look in the middle row here as sort of an essence thing that you're going to look there. So you're kind of looking at those things right like that. Like this would almost be the middle card of a 9 card. This would be the upper left-hand corner. Then you would look at your actual corners, and then you would start reading around significator cards. And we're going to be doing more tomorrow and the next day, right? Let's see. Where are we at here? 6 cards, 9 card. So tomorrow we're taking a breath and checking back with our first reading and feeling, seeing what you have, what benefit you got out of this month. So that would be kind of nice. I'll have to pull up my video and see what my first reading about this was and see how that played out, right? But then we'll be getting into the grand tableau, and I'll be doing a couple. And I do have, now these have been very quick daily videos, mostly to get people's feet wet. That was the purpose of this. But I do have some very, longer videos on grand tableaus and kind of walking through the whole process. And you can always find those by going to playlists, and then under Lenormand, there's a bunch of videos there on Lenormand if you want more on it. We're just kind of getting into the basics so that you're not worried about it. But the reason I lay these down is to show you, let's say you're doing the grand tableau and you are going to pick, let's say one of your significators is, I'm trying to find an example here. So let's say for me, it would be somebody's having some kind of issues, something is just eating away at their sense of life, their sense of who they are. And so I wanted to look at the mouse as that idea of kind of feeling like they're being eaten away at. Well, the mouse is up here at the top. There's not a 9 card. So I would simply look at these 6 cards, because these 5 cards, sorry, are what's touching the mouse. So it would be a 6 card. Right? And so that's why I would want to be able to understand and comfortably use a 6 card. If it's a 9 card, let's say I'm going to go, there's a message coming where I want to know more about it. Or if I want to go to my significator, here she is. I look to the corner, I look to the corners, I do the cross around, I can look this way, I can look this way. You can do everything with the 9 card here. But let's say here's work. Well, now we only have 6 cards around, so there's our 6 card right there. And it works the same if you're over here on the side. You still only have a 6 card. It's just kind of done sideways, but I'd still do the same kinds of things. You can read them going this way, way. You can read them zigzagging this way. You can read the pairs going this way. And so you're still dealing with 6 cards. And so that's why, you know, we kind of started with the 6 and the 9, because it just kind of helps you to be, again, comfortable with what you're going to see in when you're laying the Grand Tableau out tomorrow. So I'm not going to spend too much time with that, as that's what tomorrow is going to be. But there you have a look at the 6 card and a 9 card spread with Lenormand. And so I'm really excited to see how everybody gets on. I do have some catching up of videos to watch, but I will get to them all because I have just loved seeing everybody's video. I just have loved seeing so much Lenormand in the feeds. It's been really nice. So yes, so that's about it. I am going to jump off here now. We've actually still lost power a couple times a day. I don't know if they're going to need to fix the power. I don't know. I never used to have this much issue with power flickering on and off. But I did get through the first podcast for I'm doing on Monday nights a chit chat. I'm doing Friday night podcasts for story time, and Monday nights are going to be chit chats with various people. And I started out with Patrick from In the 78 Cards as sort of my guinea pig, just to kind of talk about things and see, you know, we did the challenge together with Within, Without, and Advice, kind of touch on that and just general chit-chattiness. So that's up too at soundcloud.com/The-Truth-and-Story, or you can also find it on iTunes in podcasts under The Truth and Story, just, you know, regular with spaces. I'll try to I can put a link to the SoundCloud. I don't think I can put a link to the iTunes. But so I did get that accomplished without any power failure, so bam. Okay, everybody have a absolutely lovely night, and I will see you all tomorrow.